This week's episode is brought to you by the Sequels Suck podcast. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Podcast Assemble, the show where you come for your rambling, geeky download. This week, with co-host and regular sex appeal of the pod, DL, departing Australian shores, I'm delighted to be joined by comedian and one half of the Sequel Suck podcast. It's friend of the show, Angus Brown, everybody. How are you?
Hey, mate. How's it going?
Mate, fabulous to see you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, this is a pleasure. Yes. It's a pleasure to be on your show. It is an absolute pleasure to be on your show, and I'm delighted.
Was it yes or no or yes or no?
Look, it's, when you're really excited to be invited to do something, but the thing maybe isn't the thing that you wanted to do. I'm delighted to be here. That's what I'll leave it as. I'm delighted to be on this show.
Brilliant. What was the thing you were wanting to do?
Look, I don't want to give away anything too early, but we are talking about something today, and I'm excited to be talking about anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to talk about it too. But we could preface that perhaps by talking a little bit about your podcast, the Sequel Suck podcast, as it kind of chimes in nicely.
It very much does, and it's a blessing and a curse to decide to do a show that focuses solely on sequels and prequels and remakes. Sometimes you get the diamonds, and sometimes you have to swim through the rivers of I don't know, can I swear on this show? I don't know if I can swear on your show.
You do all you want to do.
The rivers of shit is what you have to swim through sometimes, man. And look, it's great that we get to do this crossover and mash these two worlds together.
I love it.
Because there is certainly a heck of a lot to talk about on sequels.
Well, it's the Podcast Suck crossover. Let's go.
The podcast. That's good. Just everyone who already feels that podcasts are overdone is definitely going to jump on that title, that hashtag.
Absolutely. And look, I love your guys' work. Yourself and Cable, you make a fantastic team. And I was trying to decide on a question, like to integrate new friends of the show into the podcast. And I could have gone with the usual stuff, like what's your desert island movie or stuff like that. But I was like, you know what? Let's go as silly as humanly possible. So I wanted to know, what's your third favorite dinosaur?
My third favorite dinosaur, Velociraptor. Velociraptor is the
that comes third.
Third, yeah, without a doubt. No, they're good.
Now I need to know what comes above a Velociraptor. I mean, obviously a T-Rex.
No.
Oh my god!
See, look, you're fighting against two very different elements here. Number two is a Diplodocus.
Of course.
And that's ingrained just purely because of Dino Riders. I had a pure want and need to get the Diplodocus toy from Dino Riders as a child, and I never got it. But I forever, it's like, the unrequited love. And so I'll always love the Diplodocus. And the Triceratops is number one. They are the king daddy they're basically wearing a crown. They are the gold standard of dinosaur.
Is that the one thing as a child that you never managed to get that you always wanted? Or was there any TV shows or movies you always wanted to see as a child but never got to watch?
What did I always want to see?
Definitely a loaded question, by the way.
I don't think there was anything that I really wanted to see that I never got to watch. I think I had the other direction where my mum was just like, yeah, all right, let's check it out. Like my mum's favorite movie was Candyman. And when I was 9, she was like, you're ready.
Whoa.
I watched Candyman when I was 9 and I was scared of mirrors. So, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. We always talk about, we had a bunch of VHSs in my house growing up, and I just had a list of random ones. So Star Wars was one. The Terminator movies was another one. Indiana Jones was another. And we have these ones that I just have ingrained in my head that I can just never get away from, that I absolutely love. But the reason I asked you that was because, and I've talked about this in the podcast long time ago, but when I was a kid, there was a Power Rangers episode. I was a Power Rangers kid growing up. I don't know about you. Did you ever get into Power Rangers?
I had a phase. I had a short phase, but they never grabbed me with both hands.
I mean, that would be kind of awkward if they had. Very Harvey Weinstein of them. But he comes up on this podcast way too much in jokes.
He's a big part of our childhood.
So is Ronald McDonald, but you don't hear us talking about them in the same breath. Oh, you might. I don't know. Basically, we went on holiday and we asked my grandparents to videotape an episode of Power Rangers for us. This one episode that I was most excited for in the entire world. and they either didn't know how to do it or they forgot, and I was just devastated. And I've never been able to go back and watch it, and I wonder if that could be our sequel suck crossover on your side.
Oh, that's it. We have to find the episode, get you a nice blanket and a big bucket of gummy bears or something, and sit you down the Saturday morning, and you can finally like heal that inner child that is just crying out.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to say, the one, like, if we were to do a crossover the other way, the one I would love to do with you guys, and this is the suckiest of sequels, or it's got to be up there. It's got to be top 10 for sure. They keep talking about doing a Highlander remake with Henry Cavill.
Which, good casting.
Oh, great casting. But I don't know if you've seen the first one. That's pretty damn bad. And the second one, my lord.
Wait, are you saying the second sequel or the second film? Are you talking about The Quickening, or are you talking about the third one?
Highlander 2, The Quickening. I mean, the third one's substantially worse again.
That one I forgive a little bit, because Highlander 2, The Quickening, the whole thing they set up in Highlander is the only way to kill a Highlander is to cut off their head, and they cut off Ramirez's head, and in Highlander 2, Sean Connery's just like, I'm alive, never mind why. Also, I'm Spanish, but I have a Scottish accent.
I love that. I love that about that film. We did an episode on the first Highlander a long time ago, and it just gets me absolutely every time.
Yeah, I've got a soft spot for the first one because I grew up with it. But even as a small child, I was like, he's dead. How is he back? That's your whole thing. It's your whole thing.
It's your shtick, man. Come on, you got this. Mate, the Fantastic Four movie is coming up for the MCU very, very soon. And like I say, we thought we'd talk sequels suck. And I set this up kind of perfectly last week. I was really excited to talk to you. And we did the first Fantastic Four last week, so we're coming back for the Rise of the Silver Surfer. But before we get to that, what are your thoughts on the first Fantastic Four movie with this cast? We're talking 2005 with Chris Evans and Yoad Griffith. Is that how you say his name?
Ian? I always thought it was Ian Gufford, but that's just right. Far less exotic for that man.
I mean, it's Welsh, I think, so it's like Yoad.
Yeah, it's something cool. Whenever like he pronounces it, he says it cool.
Oh, you have to say it like that as well.
This movie is a massive soft spot movie for me. Like, it hit at the exact right time, I think. You know, before we had this
Silver Surfer or the first Fantastic Four?
Oh, the original one we're talking about that you guys chatted about last week. It's a nice, a nice gentle reminder of a time when you could just watch a superhero movie and there was no inherent stakes outside of what happened in that 96 minutes. You know, you didn't have to worry about.
And you didn't have to watch 1,000 movies leading up to it, or.
Oh my God, I long for those days. And people were a bit more willing to be like, let's just make a fucking Fantastic Four movie. Who cares? Like, what, Michael Chiklis? Yeah, put him in the suit. Whatever. He's a big ugly guy. Let's go.
Why not? He's a guy from The Wire. He'll do. Why not?
Whereas now it's all this integrated market. Everything's got to have 1,000 reasons.
You say that though. Like the first Fantastic Four movie came out the same, or the month after the the first Batman Begins movie. Like, how are they in the same year?
It doesn't make sense.
What's happening?
It doesn't make sense to me at all.
Time is a flat circle. Like, what's going on?
Well, it is so strange because when we look back now, we're like, oh, Fantastic Four, gross. But that was kind of everyone's vibe with Batman Begins at first. It's like, oh, why is it so dark and sad? Didn't we get away from that?
Yeah.
Didn't Joel Schumacher save Batman? Remember when he saved Batman with nipples? And now he's dark and ugly. Ugh. And people wanted the 4-color, crazy kind of fun, silly, no one cares, nothing matters. But yeah, now we get a fuse down the track and we're like, no, Batman's even sadder. And we tried having a dark version of Fantastic Four.
He is so sad right now. I wonder what they're going to do with the new one. Let's wait. Let's hold off talking about that. Let's hold off. We've got so far already. Guys, if you want to skip around, there will be time codes in the description, as always supplied by friend of the show and editing genius, Mr. Matthew Bliss of mbpod.com. Feel free to drop us a 5-star review if you really want. You can do it in your podcatcher of choice. You can do it right there. Super easy. If you're thinking these guys are idiots, before you switch off, or at least one of these guys, probably me, before you switch off, please give us that 5-star review. It would be really fantastic. And mate, why don't you offer the guys a chance to find out where they can find your podcast?
Check us. Sequels Suck podcast is everywhere. If you're listening to this podcast via any kind of podcast medium, if you search that medium for Sequels Suck, we're there. And Instagram, we try to keep semi-regularly updating people on what we're doing and what we've done at Sequels Suck, but it's
hard to do that, I'll tell you.
My co-host Cable, that's his dominion. Basically doing any of the hard work. I'm the monkey who comes up and is just like, I don't know. Here's my idea of how the movie should have gone, and then I rewrite the movie that no one actually saw, and then he does all the heavy lifting.
I mean, absolutely. Dre's the sex pill for this podcast, and now he's gone, and there's just me making silly Instagram clips. What is life? Dude, tell me, what have you been up to?
I weirdly have recoiled from anything kind of new at the moment in TV, and I've gone right back the other way through a weird side road. I have a bit of an obsession of collecting horror film soundtracks on vinyl, and it's sort of how I spend most of my
I love
downtime.
a vinyl.
Yeah, it's just listening to horror films. It's how I relax, and everyone thinks there's something wrong with me because I'm like, no, this is great.
I didn't want to say it out loud.
The way that I relax the most in my life is I get like one of those spiky mats, like those Shakti mats that are like better now, and I lie down on one of those and I listen to the score from like Friday the 13th 6, and it's.
I thought you were going to say like saws scraping on.
That's the next level of some of the scores that I've gotten. Honestly, are not far off that. There's some pretty horrific stuff.
What's the weirdest one you've got?
Probably, I mean, Chud is pretty insane. It's fun. It's a bit of a crazy one. What have I got that's weirder than Chud?
Chud's just a fun name.
It is a fun.
A scary movie shouldn't be called Chud because you're getting in the wrong audience.
Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers, I believe, is what it stands for.
Brilliant.
But what I found, there's a great company that does it all called Waxwork Records in the States. And I just decided, for no reason I can conceive of in my brain, got the score to the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina TV show.
Okay.
And then got the score and then realized I'd never watched the show. So I was like, I should watch the show. So now I'm watching the 2016, I think, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina show. And like, I haven't watched Succession. I never finished The Sopranos.
Neither.
I haven't seen any of the Lord of the Rings shows that are out, or whatever the new, like, what's the other big fantasy one that's come out? The dragon one.
Game of Thrones?
The House of the Dragon. None of it.
So what's your favorite weird, like, horror property then?
Prom Night 2 Hello Mary Lou is one of my all-time favorites.
That is a mouthful.
It is. It really is.
Try saying that 5 times fast.
And it's also one of the most like left turn, absurd attempts at a sequel anyone's ever made, because it's a sequel in name only, and they've just gone, we actually don't give a shit. We're just going to make this.
I'm going to have to check that out. That sounds hilarious.
Yeah, the original had Jamie Lee Curtis and Leslie Nielsen in it, and is like a sort of an atypical slasher. Prom Night 2 Hello Mary Lou is the opposite of standard in every way you can conceive.
Okay.
It borderline is just, it could be an Italian art house film in points that they've just edited into this movie about a 1950s prom. It's pretty crazy.
That sounds fascinating. That sounds really interesting. Have you seen any of the new horror films coming out? I know there's the Long Legs that's out.
I saw Long Legs. Long Legs was good. It's a bit overhyped, but two movies that kind of got a little bit of hype and went away that I watched, that In a Violent Nature. Have you seen that?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen
Incredible.
it.
I thought it was hilarious. I can understand how people would hate it. It's kind of like, I guess the premise they had is
you've got a really dark sense of humor.
I do, yeah. It's not. I'm not a well man. It's like if they followed Jason Voorhees around when he wasn't massacring the campers. Mm-hmm. Like, what does he do? And because he just walks everywhere, does it take him a long time to get everywhere? And the answer is yes. So there's like 5-minute long scenes where you're just watching this guy just walk through the woods. And when they're doing it, I was like, I get the bit. I love it. A lot of people watching like, this sucks. But it also has one of...
I would find that funny, I think.
It has one of the best kills I've seen in probably a decade.
Okay.
There's one kill that they have that is just... chef's kiss. The other new horror I've seen, which isn't getting a lot of press, but I hope everyone checks out, is a film called Oddity, which is really cool. It's the first film in years that made me like shut my eyes because I was so scared.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's really
not The Crow.
Really good. Haven't seen that. Haven't gotten around to that one yet. I was busy that day. When did it come out and close at the box office on the same day? Which I feel like it did.
That's so interesting. I was listening to a podcast. You guys have got a fantastic podcast. So would you recommend, which of those would you recommend most highly?
Oddity. Oddity is probably the best 2024 release I've seen this year so far of any
so
genre.
Interesting.
It's really, really fantastic film.
I'm going to have to go back and check that out. That sounds really awesome. I've done one really cool thing, and I don't know, you tell me, like, are you a fan of old action horror movies like The Terminator, for example?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah.
Awesome. That is one of, like I say, those VHSs that we had. Do the kids not VHSs? I don't know. Do kids listen to this podcast? Probably not. But we had videotapes, as we would used to call them, and the Terminator was one of them. And they have just released on Netflix an anime called Terminator Day Zero.
Oh,
I don't know if you've heard of this.
I haven't watched it, but I saw it pop up.
Okay, right. So it's really interesting. So this it leans into the newer Terminator films in that it's a bit of a moving target in terms of who the actual savior of humanity is. So it changes again. It changes who their savior is and where they come from and all these things. And it's set between 1970 something and like 1997 when actual Judgment Day is. And it sort of skips between the timeline. You follow this dude and he's trying to create an AI. It's good, man. And I like anime. I'll watch a bit of it here and there. Like, I'm not full into it. Whereas I like the classic, I like Akira and stuff like that. But this is really good, man. It's got a real good vibe to it.
All right. It was already on my list, but hearing someone say it's good, it's up there now. Maybe I'll finally watch something released this year. It'll be Terminator Zero. It looks right up my alley. It looks really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's got that weird thing where it goes from kind of quite flat anime style to being a bit more like CGI-y, and I'm not like deep on that. Like, I feel like when they try and 3D it up a little bit, I don't know, it takes me out for some reason. I feel like anime should be flat. I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Just
I kind of want it to feel, I don't know, maybe it's a familiarity thing. I want to feel like it always did when I was growing up.
Same. And I mean, I grew up with like Dragon Ball Z and, the classics of the genre. Actually, I should say Dragon Ball, shouldn't I? Because that came first. I grew up with those types of animes, and I feel like that flat basis works for me. And when you try and like 3D it out, it makes me feel a bit dizzy. I'm like, I don't know if I like this. Angus, stop it. I can't do this.
Yeah, it spins me out. It's no good. But Terminator's doing Terminator shit is always a win.
Oh, and the Terminator in it is frankly terrifying. Like, genuinely,
right.
like, and there's it puts a good spin in it too. So I actually really think, I don't know, like if you've seen many of the newer Terminator films, like
all except the most recent one. I got hurt too many times.
So the most recent one, the Dark Fate one, is probably my favorite of everything since two. And I'm not saying it's anywhere near two. Like, it's not. It's not.
Also not a high bar to jump over, is it?
Yeah.
It's the best thing since two. Well, look what came since two.
It's every single one of them has had, like, because it's Terminator such an awesome premise and has such an awesome like set of characters. Like, it's just such a it should be kicking basketball hoops is what it should be doing of every single name and nature. But like, I feel like it's that dude in the Olympics who tried to do the like high jump and his dick knocked the pole off. Like, it's just, like you've got an easy win here and you managed to fuck it up every time.
I feel like it's more like the break dancer who was just like, I've got this, and then it's nothing at all what anyone wanted. It's like, let me show you what I think this should be. And you're like, why are you doing that? Why is the Terminator? Why did you hire a supermodel to be a Terminator who can't act and then have a scene where their boobs in it? I think I have a theory at this. I think it's the James Cameron problem. I think because it's the same with Alien. Like, you look at Alien, incredible, perfect movie. Aliens, incredible, perfect movie. Every Alien film since has varied from okay to absolutely abysmal and anywhere in between. And I feel like when he makes a movie, he kind of crushes it so hard that the only person who can really pick it up and keep going with it is him. And he's just like, on to the next. Weirdly, the only time he hasn't done that is Avatar, where it was just like...
Which is such an odd concept.
Yeah, he did Avatar and everyone was like, okay, sure, I guess. And then he did Avatar too. And I don't know how most people feel, but I watched that and I was like, what the hell are we doing? What are you doing this for?
I thought it was the same movie. I didn't care for that. But look, I highly recommend the Terminator Day Zero. Do you have another thing you've been up to?
Film, TV, book-wise. I just read an incredible novel of all things. I read a novel called Brat, which has nothing to do with the Charlie XCX album, by this first-time writer called Gabriel Smith. That's kind of... Its full title is Brat, A Ghost Story, and it is one of the strangest and most oddly written novels that I've ever read in my life, but somehow works. Every chapter is almost a different style of writing, and it's from the same perspective of the same author. So it's kind of a meta story in that the writer is a guy called Gabriel Smith, one of your countrymen, an English guy. And he is writing a novel. He's been kind of given money to write a novel, but his father's just died and he's trying to sell his parents' house, and he's seeing a weird deer monster man in the backyard, and he's reading...
Sounds so up your alley.
reading these novels that his mum wrote before she got dementia, but every time he reads it, it changes and he can't figure out. And also all of his skin is peeling off. And it shouldn't work. It shouldn't. And sometimes the chapters are like one paragraph. And then some of the chapters are just a chapter from the book he's reading, but you don't really know that at first. And it shouldn't work, but it was brilliant. It was a thrilling read.
It sounds perfectly set up to have like a Zodiac style reimagining on screen.
Yeah, if someone good could get their hands on adapting this, it would make a truly horrifying but also oddly beautiful film. It's really
so interesting. I love that idea. Brat. I will have to. You've given some fan. I love getting new opinions and new sort of like directives on the podcast. Me and Dre have such similar tastes in things. When we disagree, it's more funny than anything. That's why I love having this type of. I like having new opinions and new thoughts on it. So Brat, you would highly recommend.
Absolutely, yeah. One of the best things that I've read or come across.
Now, you mentioned James Cameron before, and I was joking a moment ago about you obviously haven't done an episode on The Crow, but I have been checking out your Alien Romulus episode of Sequels Suck, which, boy, you guys have strong feelings about.
I tend to get pretty passionate about anything. I'm learning this about myself through the podcast. It's been quite an interesting experience. Anything from my childhood that I hold dear, I don't think I have very good perspective on as an adult. So Aliens is one of sort of the defining films of my childhood.
Yeah, right.
And Alien Romulus, it was kind of just another heartbreak.
Okay. I think Dre made the comment that it's a bit like the Force Awakens of the Alien franchise. It was a lot of things you'd already seen. It was very similar in nature to the first one. It was very safe, and yet, gave you an updated version of some of the, like the Xenomorph reimagining and such, and how they'd sort of engineered them through science, kind of. Not that they weren't anyway. I don't know. The lore's confusing for the Alien franchise, but you know what I mean? Like they reimagined them on the spaceship. And I think that's a pretty good way of looking at it. It didn't blow my mind, but I did really like that they took it a little bit back.
I do like that they contained it. I do like that they decided that this was going to be set in space and not, on a planet or anything like that, like 2 or 3. But honestly, what it made me do is go back and rewatch Alien Resurrection, which I'd written off and swore to never watch again. And I watched it and I was like, you know what? Not that bad.
I often think that about old movies. Like even when we watched like the Fantastic Four from 2005, I was like, I don't mind this. Like it's a bit of fun. It's a bit silly. Like
it's a good time.
It's all right.
There's only so many times you can watch the same kind of actors punch someone and then go in peril and then not be in peril before you're like, you know what? No one's actually going to die, so who cares?
Right. Well, let's get into that. Guys, if there's anything we haven't spoken about that you would recommend, I highly recommend going away and checking Sequels Suck podcast. You will very much like that. With the fun boys, one of which is here to now preface our main topic. Angus?
It's the main topic theme.
Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Woo woo, we're back, baby.
We're into it. We're going to talk about the guy, the entity on a board floating through space. Oh, man. Look.
It was a lot. It's a lot of things, this film.
You know what? It is. And yet, oddly, it's not. It's not a lot. Funnily enough.
It's like Schrodinger's movie. It's like, in one hand, it's a lot of things, and the other, it's absolutely none. But I was wondering, like, did you see this in cinemas? Like, where were you when this came out? Were you on the superhero bandwagon at the time?
This is something that blows my mind. And you made me think of this. So while I'm very grateful to be invited on your show, I also hate you for making me have to think about this movie so much. But what surprised me greatly is I've always been big into superhero movies. I've always loved them. All of the Fox X-Men movies, all of the, the first wave of Marvel, Batman,
Absolutely
always
same.
been my guy, Donna, Superman, all of it. And I genuinely enjoyed the first Fantastic Four. In fact, I have, like 2005, I was in university. I was out of the house. There was things I could do. But I remember rewatching this like on DVD. I rented it and watched it at home after I saw it at the cinema. So
You didn't download it on LimeWire?
Allegedly there's a chance that perhaps I might have watched it on the university dorm's intranet, something like that. But I also did definitely rent it on DVD. I remember having the DVD and looking at it.
Nice.
I never saw Rise of the Silver Surfer until these past few days. I've never watched it in my life.
Really?
And for no
Wow.
reason that I could think of. Like when we talked about doing it, I was like, I just offhand, I was like, I've never seen that. And then when I started watching, I was like, why have I never seen it?
Yeah.
Like I really enjoy superhero movies. At that stage of my life, I wasn't really paying attention to reviews. I didn't care if other people were like, it sucks. I would just go and watch anything, honestly, that I could get my hands on.
Right.
And at no stage of my life has it ever entered my mind that, I should check this out, despite liking the first Fantastic Four.
Yeah, that's weird.
Liking everyone in the cast of this movie, which, spoiler, it's a great cast in this film.
I mean, Yoad Griffith. Okay, carry on.
But it completely bypassed me in a way that no superhero film ever has. Like every other superhero film I can think of that came out, especially in that era, I have seen multiple times.
This is very much seen as like a bit of a fan favorite. Like a lot of people way prefer this to the first one. So it's really surprising that you never got around to seeing it. That's kind of baffling to me. But before we get into it then, do you have a stupid plot summary? Now, for anyone who doesn't know, we learned a long time ago on Podcast Assemble that we are bad at summarizing plots, let's be quite frank. So we boil it down to its most basic, silly elements. Angus, do you have a stupid plot summary?
The plot of this movie is, for some reason that is never explained or really even delved into too much in the movie, everyone is very interested in the wedding of Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm. The wedding, for reasons that are never explained or looked into, has not happened several times before and continues to not happen throughout the film. There is a guy who kind of is here to maybe end the world, but we don't really know. Then there is a villain who was dead and done with in the last movie who's back, but is looking way better these days.
He's looking fresh.
And then the Fantastic Four save a Ferris wheel. And then there's some cultural appropriation and the movie finishes. That's all that happens. That's all that happens.
I really want to talk about that with you.
That is the entire plot of this movie. There's not a wedding, a guy who's bad CGI, a Ferris wheel,
and then there's a wedding.
Just a real problematic scene. The end.
All right, mine is very simply, the Fantastic Four are back with dwindling returns, but exponentially more weddings and clouds. And I find it really odd that this is an era of superhero movies where they're more than happy to do, silly full body Michael Chiklis outfits where he's covered from head to toe in prosthetics, and Victor Von Doom is, a dude with a mask on for 90% of the movie. And yet the villain still has to be a cloud. This isn't the only movie that does this. Like, if you think about it, Green Lantern had a big piss cloud thing, and what's his name? Ang Lee's Hulk had a cloud. I'm like, why were superheroes so scared of clouds?
We just did it this year in Deadpool and Wolverine as a cloud monster.
Right.
Like they can't get away from it.
They're back. Oh my God.
Yes.
I find it so weird. Just like Tim Story is for this film, he's doing his best to be mean to Jessica Alba in this one. The whole crew's back, but we've also got the addition of Andre, I don't know how to say his last name, Andre Brower? Okay.
Yep.
Who is General Hager, who I love.
Oh, I adore him.
In this, we'll talk about it. Doug Jones is here as the Silver Surfer, voiced by Morpheus himself. This is a good cast. I think you said it a minute ago. Like, this is a really cool, interesting cast.
If someone told you today that these actors were coming together to make a movie, you'd be like, oh, what is it? I'm keen. What's going on? This sounds pretty cool.
It's a Silver Surfer movie. Oh my God. Don't know if I'd be that into it, but not with them now.
I mean, I think that's just because you've been burnt before. Like,
it's true.
If we'd never seen it,
like my father put cigarettes out on me before I've been burnt. No, I'm kidding. My father's a lovely man.
But like all fathers, he doesn't listen to your podcast because no parents do.
Yeah, that's right. Never would. This came out the same year as Ghost Rider and Spider-Man 3. And there's a really interesting parallel in that because one of my other favorite podcasts that I listen to make a point about Spider-Man 3, and you've seen it. He has the emo Peter Parker moment where he's walking down the street, he's doing his little dance, and they make a really great point that little dance scene is probably what Peter Parker thinks is cool as a giant nerd. And I'm like, actually, that totally makes sense for that scene, and it kind of recontextualizes it in a way that I really love. Then you watch that scene where Mr. Fantastic is doing that fucking hideous dance. And I've just got to go, it's what he thinks is cool. It's what he thinks is cool. It's what he thinks is cool.
But the thing that you're overlooking there that I think is really important is you look at things like Spider-Man 3, that dance scene, while widely lambasted ever since it happened.
Yeah.
It serves a purpose to the character
Right.
and in a small way the plot, but it's certainly the character.
the plot.
You can look at it and go, I mean, it's kind of the point where Peter is kind of getting away from who we all think Peter
Right.
is. And it's a way to show us, the audience, like, Peter's not the same guy he
his
was.
fringe is down.
Here's a dance number. You watch that and it's like, okay, we're learning something here. The thing that came to mind to me was, I think it's Iron Man 2 when Tony's like drunk and he's having the party and DJ is there and he's in the suit.
They're throwing
and
the bottles and his,
yeah, it's ostensibly like, why are we doing like Animal House in Iron Man 2? Well, the idea is have a look at how messed up Tony is. Like you get something from that.
Yeah.
You get nothing from that in not just the dance, from that entire scene. You get absolutely nothing. And it goes on and on and on.
Well,
and it sucks.
I'll tell you what you do get out of that scene. You get the fact that Sue Storm is really vindictive. Now, if my fiance walked into my bachelor party and was angry at me, I'd be like, whoa, let's hold up for a second there with all that Riz. Like, there's no need for that. That's just rude. You're at my bachelor party.
Look, I have a takeaway for that. I'll save it for the end because I know you're going to ask me about three things, but I do think there is one thing that you get from this scene, and we'll come back to it. But I
love that.
It tied up a lot of things for me, and I think it's going to vindicate Sue Storm as well.
We'll hold off that. You know what's interesting about this film, and one thing, and this is almost for me becoming like a measure of mainly superhero movies, and I think Logan is quite possibly the outlander in this, but my partner bloody loved this film. And I'm starting to think that perhaps she doesn't have the best taste in superhero movies. The last one she was really digging, the same way she digged this, was Thor: The Dark World. So I'm a little bit thinking to myself, but she'll watch them with me. And for the most part, I'm like, okay, like at least you're trying.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that Thor: The Dark World is right up her alley because it's the same writer that did Thor: The Dark World, and Fantastic Four. There's two writers. One of them is Mark Frost, and I cannot believe. You know what this movie is? Fantastic Four: The Rise of Silver Surfer is the greatest example we have in the world of why David Lynch is one of the greatest creators and directors we have. Okay. Because Mark Frost and David Lynch created Twin Peaks together.
Wow.
And Twin Peaks is one of the greatest, in my personal opinion, one of the greatest achievements we have in, whether or not you like the show, but in what can be done in television, in sound, in media, in pop culture. It's just an absolutely fascinating and endlessly interesting sort of relic that we have.
Interesting.
And then if you don't have David Lynch working with Mark Frost, you get Rise of the Silver Surfer. And I think they should just show that in film class. Like, this will tell you how good Lynch is. Look what happens when he's not around.
He's a phenomenal director.
Because I think David Lynch directing this movie, I started fantasizing about him directing this movie. That dance scene would have been gorgeous.
Were you lying on your bed of nails while you're fantasizing about it? I feel like you've got some interesting kinks here. Like, no shaming. I'm just saying things out loud. So the first one, and we talked about this last week, and like, I'd love to know your thoughts on this, but I found it to be a really very shallow movie. Now, that's maybe to be expected from the guy who directed Barbershop, the classic, with Ice Cube. And the reasoning I was giving for that was it felt like outside of the frame you were looking at, the world disappeared. Do you know? Does that make sense? Like, it was almost like a comic book panel. Nothing exists outside of that. And you know, the scene where they're on the bridge in the first one, and you know, it feels like people are running to the bridge, and you see Michael Chiklis, the Thing's ex-fiance, and she's just there, and you're like, well, how did you one, know they're going to be on a bridge, and two, get there that quickly? So like, it feels like things just kind of happen without purpose to them, and it makes it really shallow. So in this, it feels a little less shallow, like they're trying to get the characters right a little bit. I don't know how you feel about that.
I feel exactly the opposite. I feel like what they did I imagine there was one writing session, and I don't know if anyone showed up, but I imagine what they did was they had a big whiteboard, and they're like, what were the things that we love about the first one? And like, they put up there, like, I don't know, Johnny's like cockiness and arrogance, Reed's like compassion, humanity, Victor's costume, that shit was dope. And like Sue's ability to like wrangle everyone together using her heart. And then they were just like, cool, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to take all those things away. And we're not going to do that. Like Johnny is the most pointless thing because they obviously said to him,
He's a bit subdued.
They're like, oh, you're a bit nervous because your powers don't work properly. And he was like, oh, cool. So like, what should we do with that? And they went, I don't know. It's time for lunch. And they left. And he was just kind of like,
Do you think that's a he can't get hard joke just like written in really badly?
Yeah. Just horribly. Horribly.
He's impotent. Of course he is.
Chiklis, I feel sorry for Michael Chiklis in this movie.
Oh, he's so good.
Like to have to sit through that prosthetics to then be given.
He clearly wants to be that character so hard.
He said, I remember when this movie was coming out, like he talked about when he was a kid, him and his brother would always talk, like if they ever make a Fantastic Four movie, I'm going to be the thing.
I love him for that.
That was his dream.
I love him for that.
And then they put him in this movie and he does nothing. Well, he does less than nothing.
Well, I'll tell you, it's quite funny you have like such strong opinions in this one again, because obviously, it is clearly from your youth and you've got like a very strong opinion about coming back to this, which I really love. But I think the thing that really killed this for me was I watched this on a hangover, and that was a really very bad idea. Now, like a lot of our listeners know this. I'm tend to be pretty healthy, Father, Son, and the holy healthiness. I tend to do my fitness stuff, all that whatnot. But it was obviously DL's leaving drinks, and I'd had some customer drinks before that, and it got a little bit overexcited. And I was sat there on the sofa trying to watch this, and I was in so much pain, and I was like, this is not helping. All these blubbering Jessica Alba scenes where she's just sad that she can't get married. I'm like, just punch someone, please.
That's it. And I don't think that I was being like hyperbolic when I said that they save a Ferris wheel. That's the only thing the Fantastic Four do in this movie.
The only action scene
is and that like the whole of London they're in London, right, in that scene.
Yeah, correct.
I had no idea they were in London. They just landed there and I was like, that looks like the London Eye and that looks like the Thames.
Right.
But I don't know, maybe it's somewhere in New York I'm not familiar with. And then halfway through the scene, I was like, are they in fucking London? Because they never said they were in London.
And that's actually one of my core issues with this movie. I feel like they were going for like a real global appeal. Like at 1 minute they're in the Fantastic Car and they just go like, oh, we're in China. But you made a joke about cultural appropriation before, which is really funny because they spent all this time in China just to have a Japanese wedding. I was like, there's definitely something wrong with that. There's some insensitivities going on here.
I feel like what happened is the costume designer got like 6 weeks into making that dress and someone went, oh, the scene's set in China. And they're like, well, I don't have time. I'm sorry, Genevieve. I don't have time. This is what we're going with, okay? No one's going to know the difference. Shut up.
In 2024, we know you're cancelled.
Oh, the second it came on, I was like, what the fuck is happening?
And who were all those people?
Why are we doing where did you get all these guests?
Who are they? How do you know all these children? What's happening?
Yeah, like they don't do anything in this movie. That's my biggest problem with this is there is no fantastic element to the Fantastic Four.
And that's really interesting because I actually quite like the way they build up the Silver Surfer. And I'd love to get your take on this because, they have that whole interesting first scene where there's snow on the pyramids, these freezing giant lakes with, I'm assuming, Japanese people because that's where they end up in the film. I'm hoping it's supposed to be circular. I don't know. But they have this great build up to him and he's like super like interesting and he's sort of in the background. He's like this menacing figure. And then just like the Fantastic Four, he's just a bit limp. Not a Johnny Storm joke. He's just a bit nothing.
There's kind of nothing to him as a character to the point where it seems like that was the goal.
Interesting.
Like he's one opportunity to... I can't think how else you would do it so badly because you have this truly fascinating character.
Yeah.
He's this galactic figure who has seemingly endless power to do incredible things. He flies through the galaxies.
Like make movies on his abs.
He can make movies on his abs, which is a weird flex, but cool.
Yeah, right.
But when they get a chance for him to talk, like the character actively chooses not to talk. And I was reading about this afterwards. They weren't sure through filming if the character was going to talk at all.
Oh, really?
They got through most of the filming before they're like, oh, actually, he should say a little bit.
Ah, shit.
So that was like an afterthought. And the way we wound up with Lawrence Fishburne as the voice of Silver Surfer is because he signed on to be the voice of Galactus.
I heard that.
And then after he signed on, they were like, actually, Galactus isn't going to talk.
It's just going to be a giant cloud.
Do you want to be, I don't know, the silver guy? And because of that, Doug Jones, beloved Doug Jones, who we all adore,
We should talk about him.
He changed his contract, so he now has a clause in all his contracts that you cannot dub over his voice in his acting unless it is for an international release. So unless it's released in a language that he doesn't speak, you can't just be like, "Hey man, thanks for doing the film. Lawrence Fishburne's going to be you." And you're like, "What the fuck, man?" So he had no idea in filming that he wasn't going to be.
That always reminds me of like the Star Wars thing, and I'm going to be really bad at it.
David Prowse.
David Prowse, exactly. Like, and who's the guy who was actually
James Earl Jones does the voice.
That's right.
But Prowse didn't know until the premiere. And like, can you imagine that? That's like literally the biggest slap in the face. But I don't know if you've ever actually heard his performance as Darth Vader. I have.
Not very intimidating.
No. And Doug Jones does not have the most intimidating voice.
No.
So
he is kind of he's a great physique for this type of character. Like, he's obviously been in all the movies. Like, we're talking, he was the weird fish sex guy in The Shape of Water. He was weird eyeball hands guy in Pan's Labyrinth, and Abe Sapien.
He's the weird fish sex guy in Hellboy. He loves being a weird fish sex guy.
Right. Like, he has a weird fish sex thing going on, or eyes in his hands. It could be one or the other. But like, he's just got this weird love of, I don't know if it's his love of prosthetics or he's just perfectly made for them.
He just has the physique.
He got it, man.
The physicality to do it.
Could you imagine?
Great.
Could you imagine being an actor and them, like, every studio come up to you and been like, "Hey, we love you. We think you're perfect for our role, but we're going to cover you from head to toe so no one can see what you actually look like."
Then we're going to dub your voiceover.
Yeah, exactly. And then we'll bring in...
So for all intents and purposes, you will not be in this movie.
James Earl Jones is coming in to redub over you.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, the one time he does, the character does talk, is to talk about how Sue Storm reminds him of this love of his this woman he's literally destroying planets to protect.
Right, and
like, that's a pretty intense love.
I've got to say, I've got something that's coming up that I'm going to ask you about. And like, actually, you know what? Screw it. Let's talk about the Silver Surfer now. So the ending of this movie is, like, we'll get to it. There's other stuff to talk about here, but like, the end of this movie is that the Silver Surfer effectively flies up and sacrifices himself to blow up Cloud Lactus. There's definitely something here. I can't find it. There's something here. He flies up and he sacrifices himself. Now, he's been letting Galacloud destroy all these planets but he could just kill him. Does that make him complicit in this? Is he a Nazi?
It makes him the biggest piece of shit in cinema history.
Literally.
That's what it makes him.
He's just letting all these planets die. It's like, dude, come on. You could have helped them all.
I have to protect this one individual woman that I love, so I will destroy countless planets.
And now I find someone who vaguely reminds me of her, who's not Silver.
And then, all right.
What a piece of shit.
I mean, spoiler for the post credits, but he doesn't actually die. So he could have, with zero consequence, he could have killed Galactus eons ago.
At any point in the last trillion years. Like, what a prick. Yeah, you know what? Fuck him. Fuck you, Silver Surfer.
And it's funny because they talk about how there was plans for a third Fantastic Four movie and
a Silver Surfer
spin-off.
Yeah, that's...
And I imagine the studio watched this and they were like, how do we make a movie about this character that let all of those planets die? Everyone's going to hate him. No, we can never bring this guy back ever again.
I don't think any movie studio has ever done that. I think they looked at money and went, there's less money for this one than there was that one. I'm not doing more of these until there's more money.
That must have been so sad too, because I think this movie made more on the opening weekend than the original.
But I think overall it made less.
But then it completely bombed.
Yeah, and I think back in those days, things like you were talking about, DVD sales made a massive difference. And this doesn't seem to have done that well in, the broader sense of that. And a big part of that, I think, is probably down to the lack of action. Like you say, there's the London scene. They have a little skirmish with Doctor Doom, but like what happened? Like, there's no action in this.
Also, when they fight Doctor Doom at the end and then get the surfboard off him, which sounds so dumb saying out loud, what the actual... Johnny has to get the powers of all the four of them so he can fight Doctor Doom and get the surfboard back so that the Silverman can fight the Cloud. Yeah. Like, just, my God. But he fights Doom. He doesn't kill him.
Yeah.
But then we just never go back to Doom.
Well, he was contracted for a third film, so realistically...
But he's not in this film
No,
again.
He falls in the water.
Like, they take the surfboard and they're like... It's basically... It feels like I don't know if you have ever watched the Disney Plus animated series Spidey and His Amazing Friends, but it is a little kid's version of Spider-Man.
My nephew has, and he absolutely loves it.
So Spidey and His Amazing Friends is all the Spidey characters, but as kids, basically. And in every episode, Rhino or Green Goblin or Black Cat, they're up to some bullshit and the Spider Gang will stop them. And because it's a little kids show, like the end of every episode is like, Green Goblin, were you trying to kill everyone in that building again? He's like, sorry, guys. And they're like, oh, Gobby. They call him Gobby, which I have a big problem with.
Wow.
You can't call him Gobby.
Wow.
They just blatantly call him Gobby. And then they let him go because it's a little kids movie. That's what it feels like they did with Von Doom. It's like, Victor, you keep trying to kill us. You literally killed Sue, but don't do it again. And then they leave.
Sue. Oh, my God. There's definitely some weird, sad irony to him falling off the surfboard into the water. And, he definitely plunged out, guys.
He's fine.
Yeah.
He's absolutely fine.
It's such an odd end to the movie. Like, nothing happens. It's super limp. And then everyone kind of walks away.
Yeah,
except
not
Galactus,
really caring.
Galacloud. I don't know what we're calling him here, but like,
and they repeatedly keep letting us know as an audience that at any time they wanted, if they just put in a tiny bit of effort, they could turn Ben Grimm back into a normal human instead of the thing.
The poor guy.
And they just continually are like, meh.
But I think it's supposed to be like he made his choice, so he kind of has to stick with it. I'm like, is that the best way to do this? Like, could you not just flick a switch and help him out another time?
I think there's like 4 times in this movie he goes back to being a human, and every time he looks genuinely so happy. And then, like that scene where him and Johnny switch powers, he's like, "Oh my god!" And then Johnny like taps him. He's like, "Oh dear." It's like, no,
I love that.
You'd kill yourself. You'd be so fucking sad.
That's such a great prosthetic on Chris Evans as well. The amount of effort they put in for that like 3-second scene, wild.
That's I think the hardest thing about this movie is you look at it and you're like, if you wanted to, you could try because the costumes look good.
They're great.
The prosthetics look like, and especially in the world they've built. Yeah. Like that's why it's such a disappointment for most of the movie. Julian McMahon isn't wearing the Victor Von Doom outfit.
And it looked so good at the beginning, yeah.
Because as goofy as it is, it looks fucking cool in this movie.
Yeah.
So he looks cool. Ben Grimm looks cool.
They still haven't quite got Victor Von Doom right, though. Like, comics.
It's not right. Well, look, when he is on the surfboard and when he is like fighting them in their fantastic car, it's kind of a full circle moment, but that is some full on Power Rangers bullshit.
Oh, absolutely.
Like he is absolutely being a Power Ranger, and he literally says, "Time for a spin," and then spins around. They just crash and burn in that moment.
Oh, there's some fantastically bad one-liners in this. I love it.
Oh God!
Basically, the movie then collapses on itself with Galactus being a big cloud and getting blown up, and we've talked about it. Silver Surfer's a Nazi. I guess then the only like sort of like themes and tones in this movie I could really find were like maybe try and find some work-life balance. Reed, we haven't talked about Reed in either of these podcasts, and I quite like Yoad Griffith, but I don't like this version of Reed Richards. I just don't like him. He doesn't have any. He's not like hard enough. And that's not a Johnny Storm joke.
He's second only to Silver Surfer for the biggest piece of shit in this movie. Reed Richards is a massive piece. Like he repeatedly lies to his fiancée.
Yep.
He goes out of his way to be like, "I'm getting married to the hottest woman on the planet." And then like, if she hadn't shown up at the bachelor party, he would have rubber-dicked those two chicks 100%. So hard. No doubt about it.
Well, I reckon he'd just created...
While her brother watched.
He wouldn't have used his actual dick. He'd have just created other dicks on himself with his rubber powers. So
and then when she called him out, he'd be like, "Baby, it's just science." Ben Grimm is his best friend who has literally turned into a rock monster to protect him. And yet I'm pretty sure Johnny is his best man, which is just a massive fuck you to Ben. Like, especially because Ben hates Johnny. Yeah. He keeps lying to like, he's like, "I will not build this satellite for you because I love my wife," and then walks into the next room and starts building the satellite. And then everyone comes in. He's like, "Shh, don't tell Sue.
Don't tell the other one."
He goes to Sue. He's like, "Let's abandon the other two guys. Don't tell the other guys." And when they find out, he's like, "Oh, I wasn't."
He's like
wasn't
full
like
gossip
that. Like every
girl
time he gets called, he's just a piece of shit.
He's full gossip
Reed
girl.
Richards is an absolute asshole. He's building this incredible vehicle, yet he still makes Ben fly coach. He makes the thing. Fly coach, knowing he has a private plane, but he's like, "Nah, this would be funny. Let's watch that fat fuck do this."
I love that about this movie.
He sucks.
So, all right, well, let's put this to rest then. Who, in your opinion, is the biggest piece of shit in this movie? Is it the Silver Surfer, who's a Nazi, or is it Reed Richards, who is just Gossip Girl?
See, look, I feel like I don't have the full data that I need because we know that Silver Surfer is complicit in the massacre of countless planets of people. but I'm not sure that Reed wouldn't do that if he had the chance. Like, if it served his purpose.
But he'd make everyone else feel like shit about it.
If the end of this movie was the Silver Surfer is dying and somehow transfers his powers to Reed, and Reed goes up to Galactus and like, don't destroy this planet. And Galactus is like, all right, I won't if you go help me destroy a bunch of planets. He'd be like, what an interesting idea. Yeah, fuck it. Let's go. And he would just go and just destroy all these planets. Like, I feel like the only reason Silver Surfer wins only because Reed never had a chance
to be that prick. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, 100%. Let's say Silver Surfer for that. And moving into 3 best and 3 worst, Silver Surfer is actually one of my best. So I think that I'm not necessarily sure about the characterization of that, but I mean just that makeup of Doug Jones and Lawrence Fishburne as a character just really works for me. And there's he does some really cool stuff, like the scene where he is on one side of the surfboard and then all of a sudden he melds through it and is on the other side. Some of the effects, we're talking a 2007 movie here, are pretty damn good. So I did quite enjoy that about this. I actually liked the bit where Johnny was ostracized from the team. I thought of all the characters in this, he at least sort of had an arc. I know you didn't love him in this, but he went from being, the cocky hothead, and then he had to learn a lesson, and then he worked for the team. And him being ostracized from the team for a little while, and, no one would go near him because he had the weird power switchy thing. I kind of liked that. It made him really think about things. Not that this is that kind of movie in any way, shape, or form. But I also just liked Michael Chiklis' performance. He just clearly is the thing, and it's great. You tell me what yours are.
Hey there, Editor Matt here. Just coming in to say that there's a few technical issues with this section of the episode, so we're missing the first half of Angus talking about why Ben Grimm should think Reed Richards is also a piece of shit, just like the two of them seem to think as well. All right, back into it.
Tirelessly. And Ben, who has espoused how much he hates Victor and who has continually backed Reed in a heartbeat, is like, yeah, fuck that guy. And then he goes to the workshop and Reed comes back from his little date and Sue's like, yeah. And he just hates Reed to the point where he's willing to fight him to the death. And there's so no reason for that until you watch this movie and you realize, no, Reed is a piece of shit.
Shithead.
He's the biggest piece of shit there is. And Ben has
it.
always seen it and kind of excused it. And Victor just finally was like, come on. He's like, actually, you know what? You are right. So that's one of the best about this is like, oh, okay, that's why.
You know what? You flipped me, man. Like Reed Richards, he is the biggest piece of shit in this movie. Like Silver Surfer, man, he may have killed trillions of people, but he's a full arsehole.
At least Silver Surfer kills those people to protect the woman he loves. Reed is a piece of shit for himself. He's not doing it for anyone else. He's doing it for himself. He's kind of worse than Victor.
Oh man, let's not flip this on its head. Like, are the villains worse than the heroes? Christ.
My other best, I think, is I love when people who they feel like me get to live out somewhat of their dreams. And I know that Brian Posehn, the comedian and actor, is one of the world's biggest and most loveliest comic book nerds with the most affectionate language.
Right.
He grew up in the trenches. He adores everything about comic books. He believes in how wonderful they are. For him to get to be in this movie and play the priest, and I think honestly be one of the better characters in the whole movie in the 2 tiny scenes he
15
gets.
seconds he's in it. Yeah.
That is just one of the best things because I believe that would have meant the world to him and I love him. I want good things for him. So seeing him be in a superhero movie and be great in it just makes me go,
bring him back.
Yes.
Let's have him back.
So it's like when you see Patton Oswalt or one, I can't remember his name, the big nerdy guy who pops up in Peacemaker. I can't remember his name, but he's another one of those just absolutely delightful comic nerds. Google it, whoever's listening to this.
Got me. I do love Peacemaker. That's actually one of my all-time favorite TV shows.
Absolutely incredible. Yeah, he's the big kind of nerdy, bearded guy who Peacemaker picks on all the time.
That's going to really annoy me. Go on, you keep talking.
He's a Brian Posehn type of comic book guy. And I love when people like that get to cross over into the world that they essentially helped sustain and then bring into the mainstream. It sounds quite lofty talking about, Brian Posehn is the reason that we have, the MCU and the DCU and the good and the bad and all.
Steve Agee. That's what it is.
Thank you very much.
Love him.
Adore him. But I think it's great. It's great that he gets that kind of opportunity, as little as it is, and in a movie as perhaps not beloved as this. But that was definitely one of my favorite things. And my third best is that it's quite short and it ends quite quickly. That's one of the best things about this movie is it at least it's over quickly.
We talked about this in last week's episode, and like it's simultaneously way too long and really brisk at the same time. How on earth they've managed to get that balance? I'm flabbergasted.
I don't understand how it's so boring. I just cannot understand how you make a Fantastic Four movie where you have a silver, like literally, even if you take aside what the character is, just the concept. He's a silver intergalactic being on a surfboard. That's cool. You have a giant cloud monster.
And you know the funniest bit? The funniest bit about that character is when Johnny Storm is explaining what he saw to the rest of the team. And there is and Michael Chiklis' the thing is he's a literal rock monster standing there in front of him, and he's like, "No, that's not what you saw." I'm like, "You're a fucking rock monster, and your mate can fly. Like, what are you talking
You all got
about?"
turned into superpowered beings by a solar flare from space.
Yeah,
Clearly weird shit is out there, guys. Yeah, no.
Wild. Come on, like, give me your three worst.
So those are the three worst. Oh, no, those are the three best, aren't they?
You got your three best.
Oh my god, funny how they could be interchangeable with the worst, except for Brian both saying.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Look, the number one thing we haven't talked about this at all, but I think one of the worst things about this movie is the title, because if you think about it for more than 3 seconds, it makes no fucking sense. What do you mean the rise of the Silver Surfer? No. He starts as an obscenely superpowered being. He gets slightly less superpowered for a bit.
Yeah.
Then he gets superpowered again. Then he fucking dies. That's not a rise. That's the biggest descent you can go on. Like, where is the rise of this character, metaphorically or physically?
Maybe it's making fun of Johnny Storm. Like, I mean, like all the signs are there through the movie. Like, it's just...
I mean...
it's a dick joke.
Not to be too graphic, but the Silver Surfer literally is a Ken doll. He has no genitals at all. So what are we talking about?
Yeah, he still rises more than Johnny does in this film.
Listeners of Sequel Suck will know I get fucking too caught up on titles. But when I watched this movie, like as soon as the credits roll, I was like, what fucking rise? What are you talking about? I was like Googling. I was like, why? Why is it called this? And it just feels like somebody sat down and in front of a computer and was like, words. And just put the first words. And I'm like, there we go. It's called The...
I 100% believe that. That's literally what's gone on here.
Rise of the Gas Planet. No, not Gas Planet. Come on, put in some effort. The Rise of the Silver Surfer. Right, that's punch.
Something Silver Surfer. I can do this. Come on, it's right here. I absolutely get you, man. What a weird title.
Like, if you think about it for 3 seconds, like, it doesn't mean anything. It's nonsense words. Just slapped on.
Unless it is supposed to be leaning into the, he's supposed to come back for a sequel and all that, or a reboot or whatever in the next one. And then he never does, so it's not really much to rise. It's like the Age of Ultron. There's no age. It's like 3 days.
Surely if you were going to make a Silver Surfer movie, the Silver Surfer movie should be called The Rise of the Silver Surfer, because at least you imagine he'd have an arc.
That's such a good one.
He doesn't.
Do you ever see that meme where it's like going through all the mainline Star Wars movies and it's like renaming and just changing the names around? Maybe they just missed a movie and they should have named that one this.
They're a movie early. They're a movie early with it.
That's right. Come on, hit me with your last two worst.
My last two worst. I think I'm going to say the mistreatment of casting Andre Braugher in this movie and then giving him sweet fuck all to do is pretty disappointing.
I got a good one for you in Trivia Truffles in just a moment about why he might be there. You just wait. Right. You just wait. So what's your last worst?
And my last worst, I mean, we kind of talked about it already, but I just can't get past that fucking dance scene. It made me question if I actually knew anything about movies, because I was watching it and I was like, maybe I'm an idiot and I don't get what they're doing here. Maybe they're doing something really smart. I actually watched that dance scene 3 times and I'm like, what am I missing? And the answer is nothing.
Wow.
I'm missing nothing.
No.
Nothing
You
happens.
missed nothing, my friend. It's just a sucky sequel.
The one thing that might just barely be slightly worth your time is when Sue walks in all pissed off and then Ben is like, oh, it's clobbering time. Like the third time I watched the scene, I was like, all right, that's kind of funny.
That'll do.
It's all right. That's fine.
I'll check a box. He made a thing. Oh, mine are very simply that Galactus is just, I don't, it's like, it's so odd to me that they're so happy to lean into the silly outfits for the, the Fantastic Four. This silver being who's on a surfboard, they'll lean into it if he's a hero. But the minute it's like a big purple dude, nah, we won't do that for you guys. It's like, come on, like, why is he a cloud? I also had Michael Chiklis as in one of my worst. Not because he was bad, but because he was underutilized in this. I feel like he was sidelined for a lot of the movie.
He might as well not be there.
Like he was just kind of there to make quips.
Yeah.
Like he clearly really wanted to be in this, so use the guy.
To the point where he literally, like in the final fight scene, he's just in a crane as a human doing nothing. Like they could have sidelined him
Just kind of
more.
watching. Yeah, right. Literally, he's just chucked to the side. Poor bugger, like a rock. Just finally, I feel like they did Jessica Alba dirty. Like she deserved so much more.
Oh my God,
she's beautiful and like she's a good actor. Like I don't know, she's just, what is she in this? She cries and gets stabbed.
I can't believe I forgot to bring this up at all, but that would definitely be in my worst, is what the fuck is going on with her contacts and her wigs. Like her blue contacts somehow are neon blue in this movie. I watched 1 and 2 back to back.
Yeah.
And in one, she has normal blue colored eyes. And in this one, she has fluorescent blue eyes and horrible wigs. Who did she wrong in the wardrobe department between movies?
Well, she apparently it like broke her hair or some shit when she dyed her hair for the first one.
But they can make good wigs. Like they could have done better if they wanted.
Dark hair. Yeah, you could do better. You could do better than that. Like, come on, guys, you fucked up. All right. What we'll do now is we talk a little bit about the critical reception, and I would like to ask you to guess for me, Angus. What do you think out of 10 the IMDb score is for this currently?
Like you said, I think people like this more than I thought.
Right.
So I would say maybe in IMDb it's like around somewhere between a 6.5 and a 7. I'll say a 7.
Ooh, it's actually 5.6. It's
5.6?
not a great score on IMDb.
I feel good about that.
I feel the public is kind of where I'm feeling about this at the moment. We also wonder, can you guess for me what the percentage is on Rotten Tomatoes?
Or critic score, I'd say would have to be like 20 or something at best. And then audience score, maybe I'd say there's a lot of nerds out there who love comic books. Maybe 50 on audience.
Oh, wow. Combined, it's 38%. It's not good.
There's that audience.
That's combined.
That's the combined is 38.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, no.
Brutalized this poor movie. And then finally, Letterboxd. Out of 5, it's always 3.6, but it's never 3.6. What do you reckon it is?
Oh, this has got to be like a 2.1.
Oh, it's a 2.3. You almost had
Ooh.
it. It's so interesting because I was looking, and compared to the Fantastic Four, the last one, they're all just like marginally worse. Like it's the IMDb was I think 5.7. The Rotten Tomatoes was like 40, and like the Letterboxd was like 2.4. So they were literally like, everyone's kind of gone like it's the same but just a bit worse.
Yeah, at least the last one kind of you had them figuring out their powers for a bit of fun. This one they're like,
right. I'm just not sure what they did in this. Like nothing really happened.
Yeah.
And look, finally, what I'm going to ask you is this better or worse than the most average movie? Now, you can use any average movie you want, but on this show, the most average movie we know is Aquaman 2018. I don't know whether you think it's better or worse than the most average movie.
It's worse than Aquaman 2018, without a doubt.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, at least, Aquaman 2018, the first time I watched it was drunk on an international flight. So
amazing.
It was a good way to watch it.
That utter nonsense movie.
At least there's fight scenes in Aquaman, you know? At least.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Something
There's a bit of action.
happens.
Jason Momoa is very lovable.
Yeah, I like him. He's good. You know, when he does what he's good at, I'm like,
charismatic.
Yeah, man, you know what to do.
I feel like the charismatic character in this movie, obviously the Johnny Storm type, it's kind of sucked out of him in this. He was learning too many lessons. Always saying that though, in the last film, that guy gets cancelled every day of the week. He's a bad dude in the first film. I'm like, oh, there's something not right about him.
A bad dude now who somehow is the epitome of like early 2000s cool. Like what a great time capsule of our culture being just awful.
Just the life just changed. Like I have no words for that. I agree with you. It's absolutely worse than Aquaman 2018. It's just no fun to it. There's no soul.
There's nothing fun about it.
Right. Let's do trivia, true or false. Do you want some trivia, true or false?
I love trivia. Give me.
Nice. Okay. These are all from IMDb, so nobody knows if they're real or not. Okay. Jessica Alba, upon receiving criticism about her performance in a film, said that director Tim Story told her, "It looks too real. It looks too painful. Can you be prettier when you cry?" Is that true or is that false?
I 100% think it's true because I've heard that story multiple times over the years.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's one of those things that if it was really, you would at least be able to hear a bit of evidence of someone refuting it. But everyone seems to be like,
Yeah, he's a bit of a prick.
And I again, like early 2000s, everyone was a shitbag. I can believe that a beautiful young blonde woman just being yelled at by a director and everyone being like, yeah, bitch, cry prettier. Like no one would have helped. No one would have helped. This is pre-Me Too. No one would have helped. They would have been like, he's the director.
I guess they're all too scared to say anything. But yeah, it's absolutely true. So apparently she said in a bunch of interviews, she told her that we can just CGI in the tears later. Like, what a prick. You know what I mean? Oh, dear.
Isn't that just like, you've got like Scorsese, you've got Orson Welles, you've got Lynch, you've got the great directors, and then you've got Tim Story just being like, CGI the tears. We don't actually want actors to emote. Fuck me. No wonder this movie sucks.
I don't know. You said it though. Would you want The Shining where he's like making a redo the scene 1,000,000 times? Which one's worse?
When she's crying and backing up those stairs, I'm scared for her. Yes, he did emotionally destroy her and she never recovered. So I don't think there's a win.
There isn't a win in either. Let's leave that as no one won in that situation, perhaps. Okay, trivia true, trivia false. Originally, Nick Fury was going to be in the film. Is that true or is that false?
True. That's why we have Andre Barrow's weird general that doesn't have anywhere to go.
It is absolutely true. Fury would have obviously, of course, eventually go on to appear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe alongside Chris Evans, who we know is Chris Evans. He is Chris Evans. He's Steve Rogers in that, but Johnny Storm in this. Absolutely. Okay, finally then. Last trivia true or false. We've already done this. I'm going to skip that one because you know that there was going to be a Silver Surfer solo film. Trivia true, trivia false. I got a backup just in case, just for you, Angus. Because I feel like I knew you'd know some of this. The forest shots from this movie were the same forest used in the first 3 X-Men films. Is that true or is that false? Famously, mostly fought in forests.
Okay, so I'm trying to remember a forest scene.
The scene where they were trying to get the Silver Surfer.
Oh, where they trapped the Silver Surfer. Yeah. All right, so I feel like there's lots of like pine trees and shit. And there's lots of...
You use so much logic in this. I love it. We've never used logic in our entire lives on this podcast.
I would say true because I don't know why anyone would make that up.
You don't know the depths of my depravity. I make shit up all the time. But yeah, that is actually true. They did use... The thing I love about that is that it's the first 3 X-Men films. They just went, fuck it, we're having all of our action scenes in forests in those stupid X-Men films. Like, I really love those films, but my God, there's a lot of forest fighting in them.
What I immediately feel bad for is like the people who live in the communities around those forests. When like the 4th X-Men film was announced, like, guys, the crew's coming back. Here comes the monthly income where, you know what, everyone's going to have jobs for the summer. We're great, guys. Don't worry, and then they just did it. And they're like, oh shit, our economy just crumbled.
God damn it.
That's it.
What are we going to do?
No, I feel really sad for those people. Well, what he said in the McCare package.
Fuck them. They should, maybe cut down some trees or something. No, I'm joking, of course. Ultimately, I had a lot of fun with this film, and I had such a great time talking about it with you, Angus. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad we've managed to finally get this together. Where can our listeners find you and your podcast?
You listen to us on a Sequel Suck podcast. Hit us up on Spotify. Hit us up on iTunes, anywhere. Go there, love it, listen to me. It's probably similar to this, but at more great lengths. Just complain about the titles of movies and the things I think they should do better.
Love it. I love it. I'm going to have you back to just complain about more titles. In fact, I'm going to have that as a new segment, just complaining about the title, so you can come in and do that every week. How does that sound?
I'll just show up and be like, let me tell you what, this title's shit. And then I'll just rant for 5 minutes and leave. And
I just need a clip of you saying this title's shit, and then we'll just put that in every time. Guys, while you're there, please give them 5 stars. That podcast deserves 5 stars. It's so much fun, and yourself and Cable are so much fun together. Yeah, I can't wait to have you back on, mate. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much.
Oh, mate, thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Guys, please give us a 5-star review while you're there, as you're in your podcast capture of choice. And a big thank you, as always, to Matthew Bliss of blissery.fm for editing this week's podcast. If you'd like Matt to be part of your podcasting team, do get in touch with him at business@mbpod.com or head to mbpod.com to find out more about his services. You can listen to Matt's work. Just search for Coffee with a Podcaster. It's super wholesome think pieces about podcasting. I don't know about you, Angus, but I'd love to have a coffee with a friend and just talk about my podcasting issues. I mean, like, you don't have any as you don't do the editing and stuff, but like, you know, the issues of turning up and ranting about movie titles, right?
Of getting everything set up and running on time. Yeah, I would love to have be like, hey, here's the way to make it better.
You should check him out. Coffee with the Podcaster. You can find Matt's work there. And likewise, you can find us at thepodcastassemble@gmail.com. You can send us an email, send us memes, send us news, send us reviews, all the things we love, or at Podcast Assemble on Instagram. We're everywhere. We've got a YouTube channel. I will make some more YouTube stuff at some point. I promise I will. Angus, thank you so much for joining us. Until next time.
Not all sequels suck.
Tally-ho, guys.